It's called Against the Storm, and here's how it goes. When you feel trapped in a storm with no way of getting out, know that a storm always passes and the sun will rise out. We set sail together against the rough seas ahead, because there'll always be troubles, and we vow to fight them until they're dead. But when you're floating on water with no one but me, you'll start thinking it's too soon, that you should have never set out to sea. So if your heart wants to sail, why fight the desire? There's never a right time for this, because love will take you higher. We've fought against the world and come so far. The journey's been amazing, just count the stars. Our stories began since before we were born. So when you feel trapped again, remember, it's always, always darkest before the dawn.
So this all started back in 2011 when I was working at a newspaper, and the editor gave me this assignment to go and meet an author named Captain Elmo Jayawardena, who was known for his book Sam's Story. So he had a new book coming out and I was to interview him based on that. And so I go to his house and I'm wearing a t-shirt and a sarama and rubber slippers, and I've got my hair long and all of that. And the first thing he says to me is, I like that you're not too bothered about how you look, in that sense that I wasn't trying to look really sharp and like a journalist. So that made me feel kind of comfortable. And while interviewing him, towards the end when I asked him about what he felt was necessary to change the scene in Colombo and Sri Lanka when it came to writing, he told me about this dream that he had, and it was that you could walk through a very open public space like Galle Green, and you'd see someone just reading a poem, and you'd see a few people gathered around them, and you'd have the man selling the annasi carrying that bucket on his head and walking across, and then you'd have a cart with the cuddler, and you'd just have people who were interested, people who were enthusiastic about sharing their writing and talking about it. I was quite taken up by this idea, especially the name. There's something about that name, Annasi and Kadalagottu, that really stuck with me. And this was around the same time that I had started getting involved at Poetry Pilau. So the two kind of seemed to go well together. So for a while I would promote Poetry Pilau as Annasi and Kadalagottu Poetry Pilau, but now they exist as a separate entities, because Annasi and Kadalagottu now I run as a small press publishing house, and we do these little things that are called chapbooks. So any book that's under 40 pages is called a chapbook. The bright color is to make it kind of eye-catching, and we kind of use the food symbology because that goes with this idea of, you can get annasi straight off the pavement. It's really low cost and all of that, and it's something really pleasurable. So we try to keep the poems rather short and kind of fit into a page, so it's kind of like a snack of poetry in a sense. And each of these issues discovers 8 poets. I started this particular project in October of 2013, and the first volume came out in December of 2013. And since then, every 4 months, we put out a chapbook. The first 4 volumes had 200 copies each, which we successfully distribute by hand to most people. And we kind of really believe in word of mouth and that kind of approach to getting things across than through distribution systems of bookshops and things like that. So I don't know, I guess it's difficult to explain this concept because it wasn't it didn't start as like a very planned out concept. It's just built around like how people have come to interact with it. And now it turns out that this is actually a very, very small piece of the bigger picture of Annasi and Kadalagottu. Well, this month we are having the Annasi and Kadalagottu Literary Festival. So this one isn't focusing on poetry itself. Poetry is one small part of it, but it looks at all genres of literature, from fiction to non-fiction and all the other genres in between. And we're looking at the Sinhala literature as well as the Tamil literature and a lot of the English literature which tends to come out of Colombo. So that's happening on the 25th of April at the Western Province Aesthetic Resort. I'm really excited about it. I was involved in curating this one. And this time around for poetry, we have a short film by Vishnu Vasu called Butterfly, which is a documentary about child soldiers that uses poetry and music to tell the story in a more emotional way. And we also have performances towards the end of the festival by Samila Vidanage, who I mentioned before, and Benny Lau, who I feel kind of really brings something new to this idea of performing poetry with musical accompaniment. So right now, poetry is just a small part of that festival, but to have an independent festival for poetry might still be quite far in the future, but I don't see why it can't happen.
push me